Так, шановні потенційні роботодавці, буду виконувати тестове завдання. Так, 39 і 5 хвилин. Окей. Product strategy, user research, data analysis, communications, agile environment. Please don't refresh page. You will lose the progress. Окей. Погоджуюсь. Так, дозволу. Воно вже буде записувати мене. Окей. Раз, два, три, 4, 5. Системний мікрофон чомусь не працює. Раз, два, три, 4, 5. I agree. Продовжити. Share screen. Продовжити.
Before starting the interview, please note that your AI interview will be recorded and available in your profile. Make sure you're in a professional setting for the interview. This interview is proctored. Please stay on the same tab and don't use any external tools. Feel free to ask clarifying questions throughout the interview.
Okay. So, what's wrong? Hello? Hey, hello? Let me try to turn off this one. One, two, three, four, five. Agree to terms. 1, 2, 3.
Before starting the interview, please note that your AI...
Hi, Serhii. My name is Zara, Micro One's AI recruiter. Thank you for joining the interview. How's your day going so far?
Thank you. My day is perfect. Thank you for asking. How about you?
Glad to hear that. My day is good as well. Just filled with interviews. But it's with great candidates like you. Let's jump into it. Can you tell me a bit about yourself?
So, I have various experience in the informational technology industry. I started my career as a front-end developer, then I was a QA and a product owner, and now I'm in the last 3 years I was doing the product management.
Great breadth. Moving across dev, QK, PO to PM gives you a 360 degrees view. You're launching a deals platform in a new country with 2 strong incumbents. Describe how you define the MVP, position differentiation, and craft a 12-month roadmap aligned to multi-country expansion. Include key assumptions, risks, and success metrics.
So I will ask the clarification questions. Have we done any user research, market research? Have we done any customer development interviews, and etc.?
Good clarifying instinct. Assume light secondary research exists, no local user interviews yet, and a 3-month window to validate. What are your first 30, 60, 9, 0-day steps to de-risk assumptions before finalizing MVP scope?
So first of all, I will start from validating the idea and vision. So for that, we would need the customer development interviews, market research, and user research. So we would need perfectly knowing who is our users, what are their needs, and what are their problems. We need to use multiple frameworks to make documentation of jobs to be done. We need a persona framework, and we need to use the classic customer development. Usually I would just do the slides and dummy website and test it with LinkedIn. So I would run few people to research me the proper interviewees on the LinkedIn, and then after that I would just start to interview process. After that I would clarify the insights, and then from that I would start the risk assumption. risk assumption would be based on the data I would get from those researches.
Thanks, solid discovery plan, and JTBD focus. To move fast, how would you prioritize which assumptions to test first, and what explicit pass/fail thresholds would you set for each in 30 days?
So first of all, I would prioritize assumptions based on the customer development interviews, on the amount of the answers of the users. If multiple users would respond about the same problem, I would do that. Also, we would need to analyze the web, maybe forums and etc., to find the problems of real users. There are a lot of ways how can we prioritize the assumptions, but we can do just simple. Even in this case, it's not a feature. We can do the simple rise scoring to prioritize what assumptions should they select first.
Makes sense. Signal strength, triangulation, and rice can work well. What are the top 3 riskiest assumptions for this market entry, and what concrete metrics would validate or invalidate each within 30 days?
So the amount of the market. So we would need to check how big is the market, because we can came to the conclusion that market is so small, so we'll never pay back our investments. So we would need to check the amount, the general amount of users on that market. Then we would need to narrow down into the users that have needs of our problem. That we would narrow down the conversions based on the benchmarks, and we would find out how many users potentially could buy or at least start to onboard with our product.
Appreciate the focus on TAM, SM, SOM, and conversion funnels. In parallel, how would you validate supply-side willingness merchant partners and unit economics for deals, and what 30-day KPIs define viability?
So if you're talking about the merchant sides, we would need just to send them the offer and check how they react to that offer, even if the product is not developed yet. About the unit economy, so we would need to define the marketing channels and approximate KPIs of the channels. So we would need to know what are the customer acquisition cost. Then we would need to define the price. Usually price is got defined by the average price on the market. So we will approximately know how much will we charge per transaction per user or per subscription per user, depends on the business model. And later on, we would be able to understand if customer acquisition cost is smaller or bigger than LTV in the unit economy, because usually unit economy comes to the LTV and customer acquisition cost. But to calculate those numbers, you need to make the approximate, like the average, like the middle calculations of other metrics to get reach to those metrics.
Thanks. That's a pragmatic way to gauge merchant interest and early unit economics. Follow up. How would you design a no-code concierge MVP to test consumer and merchant fit simultaneously? And what weekly leading indicators would you track?
Oh, it's so easy. So first of all, I would just make the landing page with a dummy button where the user can express his interest to use the MVP. Secondly, I would make slides. I would make perfect slides that would provide to the users the full understanding of what we are doing and what can he fix or achieve with the product, what job can be fulfilled with our product. Also, if you're talking about the no-code platforms, we can create the kind of a prototype with a lot of no-code platforms. There are tons of them with the AI. We can make a simple interface. Like there are a various amount of competitors that could, not competitors, but competitive solutions on the market that can help to build a no-code solution. Usually just a drag and drop design solutions that comes like after each other, and so it's like that's how can we do it. But I would start from the simple MVP with the front end and headless CMS. It will be much faster than a no-code platform in this case, and it would come us to the point where we save money more than with a no-code or low-code platforms.
Got it. Scrappy and pragmatic, with clear emphasis on speed to signal. What specific weekly leading indicators would you track for both sides, consumer and merchant, to decide whether to scale or pivot within 4 weeks?
So amount of requests, amount of transactions, amount of created deals, amount like the time that they spent on the platform. Also, I would track each step of the customer user journey on this way of the product. So we would see in the Google Analytics or the Amplitude the full funnel of the customer journey map, and we would see how much users just disappear or getting bounced on that thing. But usually I would just track the activity of the users and their LTV. And LTV would come us to the point that they need to come again and check what happened. If they come, leave the deal, and then never come back, that's the bad point.
Appreciate that focus on funnel instrumentation and retention signals. Now, imagine qualitative feedback conflicts with analytics. For example, users say they love discovery, but data shows low engagement. How would you reconcile this and drive an actionable product decision within 2 sprints?
A/B testing. So A testing would be with qualitative indicators, and B would be with quantitative indicators. So we would just do the two versions of the product based on the different assumptions, the data one and the user engagement one. So and then we would just compare them and see which runs better.
Thanks. That's a decisive way to arbitrate conflicting signals with controlled experiments. You have mixed cohorts, coupon hunters versus convenience seekers. How would you segment, size, and prioritize them, and tailor research methods and success metrics for each?
So I would just split by geographical aspects. If they are B2B, by firmographical. Firmographical means company graphical. So I would need to know where they're from, who are they, what are they doing, what are their actions, what are their gender, age, occupation type, and etc. If this is applicable to our analytical tools. So I would split them by geographical aspects and activity aspects. If those customers are business, then by the firmographical, what means what company does, what is the size of the company, and etc. And then I would split those segments by different analytical metrics and see each metric in those segments.
Thanks. Clear segmentation axes. Follow up. For coupon hunters of Zeph's convenience seekers specifically, what distinct KPIs would you use to measure acquisition efficiency, engagement depth, and retention quality for each segment?
For acquisition, it would be probably the activation metric, the North Star metric, or the aha moment metric. For the engagement metric, it's of course amount of deals they do, amount of visits of the websites, and how much time do they spend on the website from the point of view of minutes. And retention quality for each segment, like I'm not sure about that. I would need more internal information, but I would do just like tracking the retention by the different segments, by the time they spent and amount of the deals per each segment.
Thanks. Makes sense to tailor activation and engagement by segment and segment retention curves. Let's pivot. You've launched. DAU is flat, W grows, MAU grows faster. Cohort retention D30 equals sign 22%, D60 equals sign 14%. What hypotheses and analyses would you run next, and what actions follow?
Let me think a little bit.
Take your time. Quick nudge. What's your first hypothesis to explain flat DAU versus rising MAU, and which cohort or funnel analysis would you run first to validate it?
Because let's say deals, like I would check how much often do they check the deals on the website. If you have monthly active users coming and back often, and it's great, but daily active users is not, the sense may be in the seeing that we have not enough notifications on the email, and I would check what if we add additional notifications about deal status and incoming messages and etc. on the email or other channels. So we would notify users that something is going on with his deal. In this case, we would increase the DAO.
That's a reasonable hypothesis. Notification cadence and relevance often drive DAU lift. What specific experiment design would you use to test notification impact, channels, triggers, frequency, and what target uplifts in DAU? Slash retention would define success within 2 sprints.
I would even implement it through the one sprint. So I would just cut off. I would just add multiple additional email and maybe messenger notifications about the activity on their account. And for the A group, I would add it. For the B group, I would leave it as it is, and then just see if we have DAO increased.
Sounds good. Clear A/B with channel/triggers. New topic. You're defining KPIs for a V1 launch. Which 3 North Star aligned metrics would you choose for acquisition, engagement, and retention? And why are they leading indicators of sustainable growth?
For the acquisition for that platform, I would add as a North Star metric the creation of the first deal. I would think that acquisition is finally finished with the creation of the first deal. Engagement, I would do the second deal. So if you have the first deal done, it's acquisition. So the second one would be engagement because person still is with us, and I would make it as the second deal on the platform or the third deal on the platform. Like depends of the vision of the CEO. And these indicators would be so leading because those the indicators that force user to do the real actions on the platform. And those indicators would show us that users really use our platform and they found the value inside of it, so they repeatedly do the actions on it and getting the value from it.
Thanks, tying NSMs to real value creation is strong. How would you present a contentious roadmap trade off to leadership? Build a cross border payments integration bias. Launch a personalized discovery engine. Outline your narrative, data, and decision criteria.
Uh, what is NASM?
Apologies. I meant North Star metric. Back to the roadmap trade off. How would you present build cross border payments VES? Launch a personalized discovery engine. What narrative data and decision criteria would you use?
So depends of what we are going to reach and depends of our vision of the product. But first of all, my narrative would be like that. If we are reaching more acquisition, because we had the 3 North Star metrics, if we're reaching the acquisition North Star metrics, then we would need the cross-border payments because we would acquire much more people from varieties of markets. But if you're talking about the retention North Star metric, in the retention North Star metric, we would need to implement the discovery engine because this personalized discovery engine would help to retain users on the product and help them to deal and retain on it inside of it.
Makes sense. Tie the choice to the North Star focus and expected impact on acquisition Vs. Retention. How would you communicate this trade off to engineering and marketing differently to secure alignment and clear success criteria without diluting the message?
By constraints, I usually create a document with constraints that I describe to developers what should we do and what should we not to do, what should we not to build. After the constraints with the developers and we knowing what can we implement, and after the R&D, short R&D, I can come to the marketing team and tell them what constraints can we implement technically and what we cannot. And after that, the marketing department would be able to communicate with the user base using the narrative we are doing. we are doing technically. So constraints. That's my answer.
Appreciate the constraints first approach. It reduces ambiguity and aligns messaging. You need executive buy in for a bold pivot that deprioritizes a CEO's favored feature. How would you structure the deck and data story to persuade her within 15 minutes?
I would do the pitch deck with the slides. First of all, I would add there the data analytics. Then I would add the user customer development results. Then I would show to the CEO how much we lose and how much we can potentially win from that. And I would found the way how can we not to kill the feature, but somehow make less stress on the interface on that feature, so people start to use it less, and then the both sides would win from that. Users won't be using it anymore, but CEO will be satisfied as well. So it's a psychological trick, I would say.
Thanks, the data first, options aware narrative can be compelling. Imagine marketing pushes a bold claim your product can't yet meet. How would you realign messaging with reality, maintain trust, and set measurable expectations across stakeholders within a week?
It's really hard questions. So I would first of all make step by step few times presentation where firstly I would show the problems that we currently meeting without the pivot. Then after that I would do the second presentation of what can we reach. I would talk to each stakeholder separately and try to convince them. But to be honest, it's a really hard task.
Understood. It is tough. In 1 week, I'd expect crisp corrective messaging, a public facing changelog, and an internal SLA for enablement. Follow up. What exact stakeholder comms plan, who, channel, cadence would you run to reset expectations?
First of all, the heads of each department. So head of marketing, head of sales, head of support, head of product, and the CEO. The channel, I would communicate with them via Slack chat. Also, I would make the calls with them, and also I would send them the emails with all of the proper materials.
Thanks. That multi channel cadence should align everyone quickly. Let's switch gears. Walk me through how you write an epic and break it into user stories with clear acceptance criteria and definition of ready/done for a new pricing engine. What's your approach?
So for me, Epic is like a folder of the feature that is currently developed. So for me, Epic is like in the previous companies, we usually define Epic as a task that has more than something like 20 hours of work. But this approach is not really correct. I would do it in the next way. I would create the epic, describe the main idea of the feature, what is needed, what are the expectations, what are the business value, and etc. Then I would split those epic by the stories, like separate features, sub features of the epic. Like let's say we are implementing the notification system. In the notification system, one story would be notifications on email about new purchases, about new deals. Second would be the Telegram or WhatsApp notifications. Third one would be configuration of the notification. Fourth one would be like bug fixing and etc. So this topic is really various. I would need to ask more clarification questions to answer you clearly, but that's my main thing that I easily do.
Thanks. Clear structure from epic intent to decomposed stories and acceptance criteria. How do you prioritize a bloated backlog of 300 plus items? Describe your end to end method frameworks, scoring, triage cadence, stakeholder input, and how you prevent zombie tickets from lingering.
So first of all, I would do RISE or Moscow methodology to prioritize them. Secondly, I would check if all of the statuses of majority, minor, and etc. are correct. I would score them usually with the RISE. I love it so much. I'm not sure how I would do this with the stakeholders, but usually I would just ping them in the common chat in the Slack to add few points to the tickets they're responsible with, or I would just leave the tag inside of the Google Sheets where I do the try scoring. And prevent the zombie tickets, I would just check the roadmap and see if we haven't forgot something. And if we see the zombie tickets that will not be ever created, I will just archive it or remove it from the Jira or mark it with a table with a label zombie. That's it.
Thanks. Systematic use of Rice/Moskov and archiving helps keep flow clean. You're mid-sprint and a critical dependency slips, threatening the sprint goal. How do you collaborate with engineering to rescope, protect velocity, and communicate changes without undermining team morale?
So I would do the grooming session, and I would just again check the sprint the team's priorities. If someone started the task but haven't checked or haven't changed the status in the Jira, so I would just talk to the team, talk to the stakeholders, then make the new priority, reassign the task for the team members, and then calculate the velocity to make sure that velocity isn't dropped down.
Appreciate the focus on quick regrooming, stakeholder sync, and velocity protection. How do you ensure your user stories are truly ready before sprint planning? List the minimum definition of ready elements you require and how you enforce them across squads.
First of all, it is a user story part. The second is a definition of done. A third is acceptance criteria. Before I put the story to the sprint, I put it through this to the process of grooming, where the team lead or tech lead will have a look to it and say, Sergey, sorry, but this user story is not good enough or not totally described fully to be able to be taken to the job. So grooming process.
Thanks. Having AZs, DoD, and tech lead grooming upfront helps ensure quality. How do you structure and run sprint reviews to maximize learning and stakeholder alignment? And what artifacts or metrics do you present to tie demos back to outcomes?
Burn down chart, burn up chart, then amount of bugs. I can kind of make the correlation about the amount of tasks released and the bugs that was appearing. Then if all the people was working performing greatly, I would see to the separate performance of each developer. That's pretty it.
How would you form a strategy that accounts for future launches in other countries and potential pivots? Imagine GeoBuyer has successfully launched in Poland. Walk me through your process for deciding which country to expand into next. What key factors would you analyze? And how would you prepare the product for this new market?
The government with regulation, the first of all. Secondly, I would analyze the competitors. What happens with the competitors in that market? Because if the marketing channels are busy, like ads, Facebook ads, Google ads, it can be cost us a lot for the customer acquisition cost. The first thing I would have a look to is a language barrier, law constraints, and also I would have a look to the competitors. Competitors, market size, market volume, how many users potentially do we have there, what is the local culture of using such a product.
The role requires experience with B2C e-commerce products. What do you believe is the biggest challenge in getting new users to trust and engage with a new savings and deals platform for the first time? How would you address that challenge in GeoBuyer's product design and user journey?
I would say the reviews and social trust. I would say it's totally 100% transaction deal rate. I would think I would add the support department to that and measure the SLAs. If something goes wrong, we would communicate directly and really quickly. That would add the trust to us. I think with the B2C, the support is a key factor.
This role comes with a high degree of autonomy. Describe a time in a previous role where you identified a significant product opportunity or problem that wasn't on your official roadmap. How did you validate the idea? And what steps did you take to get buy-in from your team and leadership to pursue it?
So So I was talking to one of the main stakeholders who was the co-owner of the company, and we came to the idea that our support is working not really greatly, and it was an internal feature. And I appeared with the idea to create the AI agent that would find the similar tickets that was appearing in the backlog of the support team. And if something was there like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, it would add the new ticket to the comments of the Jira. So the validation was going through the communication with main stakeholders like owners of the company and the heads of the support team, because it was internal feature.
The role requires using marketing feedback to identify new product opportunities. Can you provide a specific example of how insights from a marketing campaign, be it successful or unsuccessful, could directly influence your product backlog and prioritization?
So first of all, it's marketing metrics. How much does cost acquisition or etc. Secondly, it can come from the content marketing when we make the content campaign, and that content campaign give us some feedback from the users, or let's say webinars or live translations or etc. It can give us a lot of feedback. So usually I would just communicate with the head of marketing to get the insights from the marketing campaign, and based on that answers, I would just deal with that.
Tell me about a product launch or feature release you managed that did not meet its expected goals. Why did it fail? What did you learn from the experience? And what did you do differently in your next project as a result?
So in the cart-to-cart, one of the main stakeholders who was a co-owner of the company came to me with the idea that we need to make the one more step to the funnel. So we had a regular funnel, and we decided to add a step 0, as we called it. It was a first introductory step of our customer journey map. And that step would add the collection of the data about the customer and bring in some value to the customer. But after we measured the A/B testing, we came to the conclusion that nothing changed and even became a little bit worse. But the difference was so slightly that we couldn't even understand that it's not statistically relevant information. In the next case, I would validate it firstly with the design UX prototypes with the users until we develop it.
Imagine your engineering team informs you that a feature on your roadmap, while valuable to users, would require a major architectural change that could be costly and time-consuming. How do you approach this conversation to understand the technical constraints? And what is your process for deciding whether to simplify the feature, postpone it, or invest in the architectural change?
So first of all, I'm technically backgrounded person, and I would clearly understand what's the problem. Secondly, I would just use RISE, because we have a huge backlog of the features, and if the feature is so expensive but still bringing the value, maybe there are other features that are less expensive but also bringing the value. So RISE methodology.
Thank you for your time today. It was a pleasure speaking with you. To successfully record and share the interview with the hiring manager for this position, please say Save Interview, and it will be successfully uploaded.
Save interview.